So the best SAO anime is officially back after 6 years and some odd months. It's been a while. I have not touched season one since it quite literally finished airing, so I remember very little, I'll be honest. But I do remember my overall feelings, and that was Reki Kawahara who. That's going to be an unpopular opinion among the SAO enthusiasts out there, but the thing about SAO is that it's pretty mindless fun, but the game design is not good. It really, SAO to me really does feel like someone who wrote something not actually playing video games. There's some good arcs. I mean, Mother Rosario is a very good arc, but it's the least video game feeling arc, and I don't think that's a coincidence. Gun Gale Online is written by a completely different author who just said, hey, you know what? I'm gonna take this setting and backdrop and just do my own thing. And what they ended up making back 6 years or so ago in terms of the first anime and however long the light novel started, was basically an esports anime. It does have characters and little personal stories, but, you know, at the end of the day, you're really just watching a group of friends play a video game and sometimes compete against each other, sometimes team up in the case of this episode, and you're basically watching sports. That's what it is. And I'm going to say something that's probably going to be controversial. You don't need to watch Season 1 to watch this. I'm going to be honest. It's been over 6 years since I watched Season 1. I don't remember most of what happened. You'll be fine. Should you watch it? Yes, it's a good anime. If you have the time, do it. But if you're just like, hey, I want to watch something SEO, you absolutely could jump into this. I mean, the personal stories and stuff we got in Season 1 wasn't anything too crazy. It really was an esports level anime. And for a good while, this was the best kind of video game anime we had because most really didn't feel like video games. So I'm excited to be back for this one. I don't think it's anything revolutionary, but I just want to see well put together game design and watching it feel like actual people who know what playing video games is like. And we're in a new tournament, we're in a new arc. This was a slower pace return first episode, but it just kind of gets you reintroduced to the world, and episode 2's seemingly about to pop off. Now, of course, we do have full live reactions over on Patreon. If you want to see my full thought of these episodes, it's going to be over there exclusively. I think I'll cover this one every week, but obviously if it does abysmal every single week, it'll just be an exclusive over there. So, I remember key moments. I think what they did a really good job at was that they did flashback, but not an overly intense amount. So they would, you know, they have an interesting filter, so it was very clearly a flashback, not something in present day. And every time they flash back to something, I was like, oh yeah, I do kind of remember that. And that's really all I needed. I didn't need like a 5-minute, here's the season 1 recap. Even if you are like the maximum SAO alternative lover and you think it's like your favorite anime, I think you would be hard pressed to find more than a handful of people who would try to argue that season 1 was overly deep. It was deep in terms of game design for what we're used to, but it was just watching a sporting event. That's really the best way to put it. To me, when watching SAO Alternative, it's very reminiscent to what I feel like when people are watching their favorite sport. There's no real story to sports. There could be personal, like, oh, they have a rivalry in this fight, this is why this fight's so important. But you can also just watch the guys beat each other up. And for this, when I watch, I often will I'll put on Halo sporting events, sometimes I've watched League sporting events. I don't even like League of Legends, so sometimes I throw that shit on. I don't know who the players are half the time, and I'm just consuming, and I can tell when crazy things are happening, especially because of the narration. That's kind of the impression I get with SAO Alternative, is that it's basically like, imagine going over to your friend's home and watching them play a game. They're like, hey bro, I'm about to go into this crazy WoW raid, watch what I'm about to do. That's basically the feeling of watching SAO Alternative. Now, for those who want here's this very intense, we're trapped in the game, or, oh my god, if we don't do this, someone's gonna die, or blah, blah, blah. That ain't this show. They literally log out, go to school, go to work, like they have lives outside the game. And I really like that about this, because before SAO Alternative, there wasn't a lot of anime that I felt like truly understood what game design can be without trapping the characters in the game. And shortly after that, we started getting, you know, better stuff. And I think in the past few years, whether you want the more comedic approach like a Bofuri, to the more like, okay, they're clearly not trapped in the game, but they truly understand video game design. Shangri-La Frontier, I think the magnum opus of this type of genre. I think, you know, we're in a better time than we used to be, but I still think something like SAO Alternative still has a place in the anime community. I think the SAO name takes it a bit farther than it would be if it didn't have it. But at the end of the day, you can't say it doesn't feel like the Gun Gale Online world, because it does. Like, it very much looks and feels and acts like you kind of felt like Season 2 of SAO did when that initially aired. So the return really was set up. It didn't feel dry, it didn't feel boring, but no one's gonna argue that this episode did anything revolutionary. It really was reintroducing, you know, if my memory serves, I could be mistaken, the last event in Season 1, most of the current party that we have, we were competing against, right? So now what we have is the group kind of working together. They formed a little makeshift party, and they're going into this new event, and honestly, it's probably going to be explosive. I mean, literally, Pito ends up giving the girl with the grenade launcher these extra explosive shells that apparently have quite the radius, and she has 6 of them, so that's going to be explosive. We have Len, who is a speedy little runner, who I'm sure is going to Sonic the Hedgehog herself around and beat people up with her SMG. It's just going to be a fun time. It feels like, even when you look at some of the other characters, I'm going to take me a bit to remember characters' names, but the one dude who, in the other clan, was like, hey, I want to switch to a sniper class for this event. It's going to be a lot more open field. It would benefit us to have something for more long range. Nothing crazy, but, you know, immediately I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I like it, because it actually felt like, rather than it just being like, okay, here's the next big event, they could have easily skipped over most of this, and I'm sure half, if not more, of the fandom would have preferred that, because we would have just been thrown right back into the action. Instead, we got to see some tactics, some setups, some meetings. I mean, one of the most notorious videos online is Leroy Jenkins, the mofo who decides to just randomly come back in the middle of the meeting and says Leroy Jenkins and runs into the WoW raid. Screw planning and preparation, and it's chaos. Most of these types of games, you got planning, you got preparation, and they did that. And honestly, I didn't find it boring. I was like, yep, this is why it's my favorite SAO project. Many will disagree with that statement, that's fine. Call me an SAO hater for all I care. I really don't. I will watch everything SEO because, in general, at its worst, it's mindlessly fun. At its best, it can be pretty decent. SAO Alternative, I think, knows exactly what it can be and doesn't really try to be more than that, and because of it, it just becomes a very good anime that I consider worth watching. Let me know what you thought down below. Do you want more videos on this one, especially because it looks like it's going to be popping off next week? Do let me know down below. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course, ring that bell, and like I mentioned, full live reactions over on Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll just give you a video shout out. Alright, so today we got Morton Hansen, Danny Boy, Simon Lau, Enki, Mark Green, Miguel Martinez, and we also have Axe Alex 2018. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care, and you'll have a good one.